I think no matter what we decide, having a kid, for sure, I will think, I wonder what my life would have been like if I wouldn't have had this kid. I wonder how much money I would have had. I wonder where I'd be living. I wonder what I'd be doing instead. I will for sure have those thoughts. It is impossible to not take into consideration the other side. Like, what would have happened if I would have stayed with that partner, stayed in that job, not made that move, not had this kid, right? And so it's like, you're going to entertain other options. Don't let it eat you up.
I'm Keltie Maguire, and you're listening to the Kids Are Childfree podcast. Okay, I have been excited to bring you this guest on the podcast pretty much since I knew I was going to start this podcast. I thought, this is a woman I have to have on because she is so real about her journey into motherhood and her experience as a mom. Now, what can I tell you about Renae Saager? So, amongst many other things, which you'll hear about in a moment, she is a certified health and life coach who specializes in emotional eating and mind management, and who offers go-getter women the tools to conquer food and anxiety issues with confidence. Now, Renae leverages her own recovery from disordered eating and self-doubt to deliver a no-nonsense approach to break the chains of emotional eating, promoting a solid sense of self-worth and clarity. Her coaching is a blend of humor and actionable strategies, ensuring that transformation is not only successful, but actually enduring. Renae, I want to set this up by saying you are one of my favorite people to follow on Instagram. You always make me laugh. You have the best metallic bodysuits. If you don't follow Renae Saager, you've got to do this because, man, she can rock a gold lame bodysuit like nobody's business. And I'm just wondering, have you always been this way, or how did you develop into this person who has this sort of like devil may care attitude?
I think I've always had some sass. I've always been a little, like I kind of pushed the limits, as a kid, I definitely did that. But definitely not to the degree that I am now. In fact, I remember in my mid-20s, because I was always kind of like a little out there, but I had this like moment where I was so embarrassed of how out there I was, because it's like you always think you need to be the person that you're naturally not. So I would look at women that had like very professional LinkedIn profiles that wore suits and pencil skirts and heels and just put together to the max. And I would be like, well, I'm a massive failure because I am nothing like that. That is the complete opposite of me. I'm like, everything that is, I'm not. And so I just like went through my Instagram or my Facebook and I deleted all these posts, all these silly videos. And I was like, okay, I'm really going to get my life together. I'm really going to get my act together. And I was like, this is who I need to be successful. And so much of that was like trying to follow the path of life that we're told we should go down. Like, go to school, get a job, work in a career, stay there forever. Then you retire and you look a certain way and you live a certain lifestyle. And I will tell you what, I tried to shove myself in that formula for so long. And it took a lot of unlearning to embrace the truth of Renae, which honestly is still evolving. Like, I'm never going to be complete, right? Until I take my last breath, I'm going to be complete, like changing and shedding layers and bringing on new things over and over again. But I definitely wasn't always the way that I am right now. 5, 10, 15 years ago, it was more like, oh my gosh, I need to look this way because I need to be accepted and I want them to like me and I want them to think these things about me because I hate who I am. I'm too chaotic. I'm not good enough. I need to be smarter. And so like, again, that just like trying to cram myself into the quote right way to be. So no, not always been this way.
Okay. And so I'm curious to know, I mean, I sometimes people say to me like, wow, you seem so confident. And when I share that I struggle with anxiety, they're surprised to hear that. And so you seem to me as someone who's very confident in themselves. And it sounds like it's been a long journey and it continues to be a journey to cultivate that sense of self and show the truth of who you are. But would you say there is always an element of like fake it till you make it? Or is what we see in your funny reels and you showing up online, like, is that really the confidence that you hold for yourself?
Oh, well, I think the reels and the funny videos are for sure the true confidence, because that's just like me messing around. I'm just like having fun. Having fun is a really big part of my life. I need it to stay sane. I need it to stay happy. I need it to stay alive. And so I try and sprinkle that in where and when I can. But am I like this unwavering, self-confident, 100% of the time individual? Hell no. And listen, if you're a human being and you don't have anxiety, I don't think you're alive. I don't think you have a pulse. I think you're lying. Like, what person doesn't have anxiety, and what person doesn't have self-doubt from time to time? Like, I think that if you don't have a level or degree of self-doubt, you're playing way too safe and way too small, because you're just like, no, this is comfortable. I'm just going to live within this like 1 mile radius and do all of these things that I know how they're going to look and feel and the outcomes of them. And I'm not taking any risks. So no, I for sure have self-doubt and like, what am I doing? And I go through moments of that. And I'm also super freaking confident. And it just depends on what I'm doing, who I'm with, where I'm at. So I can really go both ways, honestly.
I like how you say "and," because I think that's so important. I think we think we're this or we're that, and we can be both. I mean, I am generally very extroverted, but I also love being alone, and I really recharge in being alone. And I think we're so keen to always define ourselves as, yeah, this or that. I'm confident or I'm not. And we can have self-doubt, and we can also be confident, and in certain moments we might be lacking in that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so let's talk about confidence in this child-free decision, because I know that you recently became a mom. Do you want to maybe just tell us briefly how you have a son, correct?
Yes, I have a son. He is going to be 9 months this month. He was 2 months early, well, 7 weeks early. And yeah, didn't see that one coming. But here we are.
Okay. And so I have to ask, when you say didn't see that one coming, what part? The early arrival, you didn't plan to have a child, you didn't think that was in your future? Like, tell us how motherhood came to be for you. And were you always confident that you were going to become a mom?
Oh my God, no. Like 2 years ago, I was like, ew, no, definitely hard no. I mean, the whole time David and I, my now husband, have been together, which is like 7 or 8 years, I was like a solid no. I was like, no thanks. Tie it off. Like, I don't want anything to do with this. They ruin your life. They ruin your marriage. They take your money. They take your time. I'm not interested. I want to do what I want to do, when I want to do, how I want to do it, forever and ever. That's what I think life should be about. And so I was just like a really hard no. And I never had that, like, I just am dying to be a mom. It's my purpose. I never had that pull. I never had that desire. I never had this idea that my life wouldn't be complete unless I was a mom. I just never, I don't know. I was like born without it or something. But it was when my brother had a baby. He and his wife had a baby, and I went over and met my nephew, and he was like 4 or 5 months or something at the time. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is kind of cute. Look at this little guy. And then, I was just kind of chatting with my brother about it. I was like, did you really want a kid? Like, do people really want kids? Like, do people really have this deep desire to have a child? And he's like, yeah, I really wanted one. Cause he's like, well, what am I going to do for the rest of my life? I'm just going to like work and make money and take a couple trips. He's like, that's fine if that's what you want to do, but I just don't know that I want that to be what my life is. And that really struck a chord with me. And I am someone that I want to do everything. I don't want to feel restricted or deprived of anything. I need to get in there, see it, feel it, be a part of it, to know, is this real or is this not? Like, is this hype? Is this good? Is this bad? In all things. And so after I met with him, or after I visited him, I came back and like told David, I was like, I think I want to have a baby. And he's like, what? I was like, yeah, I think I do. I think this seems cool. I think we should probably do this. Like, right? Should we? Shouldn't we? Should we? Shouldn't we? And so then I just got off birth control, and we were like, Jesus, take the wheel. Let's see what happens. And within like a couple of months, I was pregnant. And it was definitely a mixed bag, because I wasn't like super excited about being a mom because there's so much that's terrifying. But I also was like, I think I do. I think I don't. I don't know. Let's just see. So that's kind of how I came to be a mom, which is not a very romantic story. But that's just the way it happened.
These are the stories we need, though. And I remember hearing bits and pieces of this over the last, I guess, year and a half, couple of years. And when you talked about, oh my God, holy shit, I'm going to be a mother. And like, oh my God, this is crazy. And I have mixed feelings. And you've been super transparent about at least some of the ups and downs of becoming a mom. And it's so refreshing because it's so uncommon. And so I have a few follow-up questions. Now, you said that you were a pretty hard no, and I'm sure there's people listening to this who are like, I'm a hard no. Am I going to change my mind? Because that's what we hear as women who are who believe that we do not want to have children or feel that way, that we're going to change our minds. And of course, as you're an example of, there's nothing wrong with changing your minds. And I tell my clients, you're allowed to change your minds. But had you, when you were young, also thought you wouldn't be a parent? Or was there a period of time where you said, no, I don't want this? Like, what did that journey look like sort of through the entirety of your life? Or was it always just like, no, 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 no?
No, I definitely did. So when I feel like the time I wanted to be a mom the strongest was when I was like 13 or 14. Like, what on earth? Thank goodness that never happened. But that was like, oh my gosh, I just wanted to play house, basically. I was like, babies are so cute. I just want to play house. And then I remember in high school, we had to do this like 10-year plan, and I was 17. And I don't remember like anything else that I wrote in this plan aside from, I'm going to be 27. I'm going to have 2 children. I'm going to have a house. I'm going to work. I can't remember what kind of job I was going to have, but I was definitely going to have two children, a house, and a husband at 27. And I remember
and a pencil skirt. Don't forget the pencil skirt.
Yes. I remember at 27, like, oh my God, I'm a freaking mess. Like, how are people at 27 having babies? Like, I'm 5 years sober. I can barely hold a job down. I'm freaking insane. I can't manage money. I can't manage my emotions. Like, how are people raising children? And to think that I thought I was already going to have 2, which means I would have started having kids at like 24. You're a freaking baby at 24. So no, I also think that I went through, disordered eating stuff, drinking stuff, and just the massive anxiety stuff for so long that I was like, I'm so effed up. I do not want to have anyone else have this. Like, I don't want to give this to my kid. I'm barely making it on my own. I can't imagine taking care of another human. Like, I'm too ill-equipped, honestly, is kind of how I felt. So I was like a yes early on, and then a no. And then, I always considered myself like a late bloomer. I did have a geriatric pregnancy. So, I guess it's more common now to be having geriatric pregnancies because we're not having babies at 24 as often now. But yeah, I like mid 30s, I was kind of like, I don't know, it could be kind of cool. So I'm a little slow for everything. Like I'm slow for everything. It takes me forever for things to go into my brain. I interpret information very slowly.
Okay. All right. So for you, it was a point that you perhaps felt that you would naturally come to. It just felt later than perhaps it may be for other people who come into motherhood and that decision. And it's interesting because I hear from a lot of parents that you never feel fully ready. And I'm curious for you, like, if you could say how confident you were going into that, like, take the wheel, Jesus moment, how sure did you feel?
Not like 0%. The fact that they let me leave, like I kept waiting, like, is someone going to come check in on this thing? Because like, do they know that they just sent this child home with me? Can someone come help? No, I was not ready at all. And I don't think for most things in life, you're ever ready. You will never be ready, especially for parenthood, but launching the business, leaving the relationship, starting the relationship, making the move, asking for the raise, having the conversation, taking the risk. You are never going to feel ready. The end. I just really, truly believe that. I think the best and coolest things in our life are going to come at the cost of doing it with a little bit of self-doubt because you've never done it before. And, I used to be very like type A, and I'm the opposite of that now. I feel like I've completely done a 180. And I would be like such a planner and obsessive, and I let go of a ton of that. And I think that that's been something that's allowed me to have fun being a mom is I'm just like, man, I don't know. Okay. I mean, I didn't read any pregnancy books. I didn't listen to anything because I was like, I don't really care what anyone else has to say. I don't. Like, I'll occasionally look on there for like, how do they eat solids and random things like that. But like, I just don't care. I just don't care because I don't think anyone else knows that much well.
Was there a moment, I mean, it sounds like you've had a lot of holy shit moments, so to speak, like, oh my God, holy shit, they sent me home with a kid. But I'm curious, was there a moment after you became pregnant where you thought, what have I done? And there was like, has there been any moments of, I think I've made a serious mistake? Or was it more like scared, but in a good, exciting way, if that makes sense? Or maybe something totally different?
The whole time I was pregnant, I didn't really have like I'm scared or I'm not ready. I was just like, this is wild. My body is changing and this is crazy. I'm like shopping for baby clothes and what's heck going on? I think the moment of holy shit, I just royally messed my life up was like the first 4 or 5 months of his existence. I was like,
tell me about that.
This sucks. I hate it. I hate this. And I got into this Facebook group and I think he was like 3 months old or something. And I was like, when do you stop regretting this decision? Because not into it, not digging this mom role. I still like the title mom does not, I would be like looking over my shoulder, like, who are they talking to? Like, nah, not me. I'm not that. Like, I still don't feel that title. But I did not love it. I did not love having a little tiny baby. It was freaking rough and it's still rough, but it's so much better now that he's almost 9 months. I feel like I turned a big leaf around like month 6. But those first 5 months, I was like, David, my husband, and I joke, like, there's a fire station down the street. I was like, when's like the cutoff for being able to drop them off? Because I'm not sure that this is
He's 10. Come with mom.
I know, I'm not sure this is the journey I want my life to be going down. And so, yeah, I didn't like it. I didn't like anything about it. I was annoyed. I was resentful. I was angry. I was tired. Everything bad.
Okay. And so tell me more about that. Like when you think about the specific things that you did not like, that you found difficult, that you hated, what were those things? If you can give us a few examples.
I am very career driven. I am very, I need and like a lot of time by myself. I don't consider myself extroverted. I need like 1 hour a week with other people, maybe 2, and I'm good. I'm good for the week. Like that's it. And I like 8 to 9 hours of sleep. And I like to go for a run and then record my podcast. I like to take naps. And in the blink of an eye, all of that was gone. And I think the hardest thing for me was that my husband and I went into this together, right? Yeah, I carried the baby. I did all the work up front. And then we had this baby and I kept doing all the work. And I was like, you're going to work. He's like, well, what do you think I do at my job? I just sit around and it's easy. I'm like, what do you think I do at home? I just sit around and it's easy. Like there is no break. I literally take a shit with this kid strapped onto me. I don't have an ounce of time. And then I get up 5 times in the middle of the night. And so I think that was the hardest part for me, was just like, how do I keep doing anything? How do I do anything? Like this kid is literally on me 24/7. And I was resentful because David would go to work. He could listen to podcasts. He got to drive in a car without a screaming child. He wasn't looking up. How do they sleep? How do you do things? I mean, all these things, burping and hiccups, and do they have colic? He was just like, just went back to normal life. Meanwhile, nothing in mine was the same. And I kind of always, what is so hilarious to me now, I look back on that and I really thought he's going to be the one to get up in the middle of the night with the baby because I'm the one that needs my sleep. And I really thought that has not been the case. And he's going to listen to this episode and he has offered a million times to do this, but I don't want to have to wake him up. And then he moves so much slower than I do that I can just get it all done in a minute. And it's going to take him 5. And those 5 in the middle of the night are going to feel like 5 hours. So I just do it all. So that has been the hardest part for me, is just completely having my entire schedule, routine, working in my business just lit on fire and thrown up in the air. That's been the hardest.
I love how real you talk about that, because I think that is the reality for most moms, especially, you're a business owner as well. That adds a whole other layer. It's not like you have a maternity leave that you take and then you go back to work. Well, in the States, it's like 5 days later, but that's a different story.
Yeah.
So you said he's 9 months now, your son. 9 months in, how are you feeling about motherhood? I'll stop it at that. How are you feeling about motherhood today, 9 months in?
Oh my gosh, we just got him. Oh, I've been buying so many cute little Christmas costume things. Like we got a little Christmas hat and a little elf hat and little Santa Claus, and he's just so cute. He's so cute. He laughs and he smiles, and it's still annoying a lot of the time, but like, what isn't, right? Running my business is annoying a lot of the time. Being in a relationship is annoying a lot of the time. Having a dog is pretty good actually most of the time, but sometimes it can be annoying too. But like most things in life are pretty annoying, but it's so much better now. Just the fact that he can engage and he can like sit and play with toys, and he looks at you and he gets excited and you can interact with him. So all of that just makes it feel so much better. I can actually push him in the stroller and he has fun. He doesn't scream every time I put him in the car seat. So it's a lot more fun now. Like I love getting to see his sweet little face in the morning. He's gone right now. He's not in this house anywhere to be found. And I started getting part-time childcare, and that has just been like, oh my gosh, like what a freaking relief to just have, because when he's with you, there's no silence. And we have a very quiet home for the most part, but when he's here, it's just like screaming or eating or pooping or needing to nap or needing to eat or playing with a toy or something. And so having him gone out of the house twice a week is a blessing. And sometimes on the weekends too, I'm like, you just need to take this child and go, I don't care, come back in 4 hours, please. Like I just need some silence. I need time to focus. So getting some childcare help has been such a huge game changer for me.
Yeah, that's the exact word I was going to use, is game changer. It sounds like it. And just hearing you describe that, there's such a shift in you, like having that space and time for yourself. And, I hear from people, some people love the baby stage. Other people really loathe it. Some people like aspects about it. Obviously, parts are not so great. Some people find the toddler years hard, or teenage years. And I think it is such a lie to think that we're going to love each and every moment of raising a child. And it's, you and I were exchanging messages yesterday, like some of the screenshots I take of people in their comments about parenting and, likewise for being child free, but like these sort of myths that are perpetuated. I think, I don't know about you, but I imagine for a lot of moms, it just makes you feel like crap, because you're thinking, what's wrong with me that I don't feel like everything's sunshine and rainbows all the time? Or did you ever feel that way?
I actually had the opposite reaction, because I felt like, kind of like the reel that you reposted, I feel like all I saw were moms complaining about how hard motherhood was and how much their children this and this and this and this, like 3 or 4 years ago. And I was thinking like, so why did you have a kid? Like nobody made you have a kid. Like, do you even like your child? And I think that was a big part of why I didn't want kids too, was because all I heard were people complaining. all the time. And I understand why. It's funny because I was talking to another mom about this and she had a complete opposite. She's like, I heard that and I thought people were over exaggerating. But now that she's in it, she's like, oh, now I see that they were like being honest. But I heard it and I was just like, dude, shut up then. Like, nobody made you have a kid. That was my honest reaction.
I agree with you. I think there's been almost like a swing in the entire opposite direction. I was talking about like, some of the commentary that we see or hear from people about like, oh, it's just amazing. And then if you don't have that experience, maybe you feel like you're somehow unique that way. But I think historically it may have been that way, that we talk more about how having kids is wonderful. And we, of course, hear, and we'll talk about them in a little bit, but some of these sort of stereotypes of like how rosy everything can be and the feelings you're going to feel. And I'm curious to get your take as a mom, how much of that's real.
So my kid was in the NICU for 7 weeks. And every single person I talked to was like, it must be so hard. This must be such a hard time for you. You have to leave in there. And I was like, this is freaking great. Are you kidding me? Like, what? Like I'm 25, 30 people. This must be so hard. This is so terrible. I can't imagine. Are you doing okay? Are you holding up? It must be awful. I was like, I'm having the time of my life. I just had a kid. I get to come home and sleep. He's being taken care of 24/7 by people that know what they're doing, because I certainly don't. And we get to go out to dinner and watch movies right now. Like, this is this is like a soft launch into motherhood. I love it. I think every mom should get it, because you need to go home. I had a C-section. You need to recover. You need to sleep. You don't need to be lugging a baby around. I thought it was amazing. But that was 1 minute where I was like, I'm doing this wrong. Like I don't think that too often, but just the number of moms that had said that to me, I was like, I think I'm doing this wrong, because I think this is great having him in the NICU. And then, I talked to David about it and he's like, who cares? Like, no, it is great. We're out at dinner right now and you have a 3-day-old. Like, this is great. I was like, yeah, I know, it's great. I love it too. So that was a little bit of an opposite experience that I had with it. And then, I don't feel like I've developed that I feel like the connection and the bond with him is also something like the first time you hold him in your arms, you're going to feel something. I felt nothing. I was like, okay. Like, he's so tiny, and like, I felt nothing. I didn't cry. I just was like, cool. Okay. I guess like I'm a mom now, just like now within 3 seconds, I'm a mom. Okay. But I didn't like fall in love with him right away. I mean, I feel like that's still developing, it's a relationship. It's a
you
relationship
didn't know him.
Yes, exactly. It's a relationship that I think, ask me in 3 years, it's going to be even stronger. But now I'm like, yeah, he's pretty cool. Like, yeah, I like seeing him in the mornings. He makes my heart feel happy, and he's a very sweet, sweet little boy. And I think that relationship is just going to continue to develop.
All right, you want to know what is almost but not quite worse than feeling totally angst-ridden and indecisive about whether or not to have kids? It's other people and their questions about, when are you going to have kids? Or what do you mean you're not sure? Of course you're going to have kids. These kinds of questions and comments can make things that much muddier when it comes to getting clarity on whether or not kids are right for you. That's why I created my Kids or Child-Free Response Guide. It is a free guide with 25 different ways that you can answer the question, so when are you going to have kids? When the answer is, I really don't know. You can find that guide either in the show notes for today's episode or at kidsorchildfree.com under the free resources tab. I want to go back to something we were talking about a few minutes ago, which was this idea of being ready. And I certainly agree with what you say, that in some sense, we're never going to feel especially ready. And I think at the very beginning, you were talking about like sort of that we need to be on that, I don't know, like outside edge if we really want to grow and have new experiences in our lives. We can't just wait to feel like we've got all our ducks in a row. However, I also want to touch on something you said, which was, rewind to when you were 27 or maybe even a bit before that. And you had a lot going on personally as far as struggling with disordered eating and with drinking. And my sense is, from what you've said, that you wouldn't have been ready there then to have a child. So do you feel like for yourself, there was a certain amount of work that you needed to do personally in order to like prep yourself for this moment you're in now?
I mean, I needed to do that work just to be alive and be a healthy,
Mm-hmm.
happy human being. I never was like, I'm going to do this work so that I can have a family. That was never, ever my thought or intention. I never think that far ahead. I'm just like, I want to feel good today and tomorrow, and then like, we'll figure it out later. I'm not a planner like that. So that work definitely did need to happen and come first. This kind of brings up another thought that I've had on this is just like, this was a screenshot that we had seen yesterday was, about the financial piece, because I'm not loaded. I don't have a mansion, and I don't have a full-time childcare person lined up, and I don't have all of these things locked and loaded and ready to go. And I feel like that is a big part of what made me like, I'm not having a kid. It's, we all see those statistics of like, it's $120,000 or whatever, like just huge numbers for raising a kid. And you don't stop having a kid at 18, like give me a break. So it's forever. And so I was like, I'm never going to be in the financial position to have a child and live comfortably. And, this is where it's kind of my personality, where I'm just like, baby, you just got to jump in and figure that shit out on the way. You just got to, because you're going to, like we've talked in the beginning, like you will be waiting forever to get all of your ducks in a row. And what if they never get in a row? What if those little fuckers are running around forever? Are you just going to keep waiting? Are you just going to keep waiting? Yeah. Like, no, you just got to jump in at a certain point. If you're like, you know what? I think I kind of want to do this. And that was where I was at, where I was like, I think I kind of want to do this. Yeah. So that's that.
Well said. I get the sense, and correct me if I'm wrong, but like some of the work you do or the work you do with women helps women to, I guess, move through some of the things that you personally have gone through and struggled with. And even how we talked about becoming more confident and like doing things your own way, as opposed to feeling like you have to wear the, the pumps in the pencil skirt, so to speak, metaphorically. Tell me a little bit more about that work and how you help people and sort of how you came to this.
Well, most eating stuff starts from trying to be good enough, trying to fit in and be liked. I mean, that's the core of everything. That is the core of everything. Am I good enough? Will I be accepted? Will I be liked? And for a lot of my women, it comes in the lane of food, of like controlling food, manipulating their body. They're also just really type A, tightly wound, want to do the best, rule followers. They are the planners. They are like, they are like I was 12 years ago or whatever, where it's like, I'm going to write this plan. I'm going to do this. I'm going to follow this. I'm going to follow all the rules, dot the T's, cross the I's. Other way around, cross the T's, dot, whatever. They're going to do all of that and make it perfect. And it's like you're vibrating so high that eventually something's going to break. Something's going to give. And that comes through binge eating, obsessing, over exercising, restricting, weighing, just anything to like have a release valve on that anxiety to just like, whew, okay. But also, when you go through that with yourself, you basically completely disconnect yourself from your body. You're like, hungry? Nope. Full? Nope. Let's keep eating. Tired? Nope. Just keep pushing. Do you like this job? Doesn't matter. This is what I have to do. Just come, show up, do the work, get it done. Make sure they like you. Are you unhappy? Doesn't matter. Do whatever they want. And you just shove it down, shove it down, shove it down, shove it down. So you're completely detached from your gut, what you want to do. The trust is not there at all because you haven't listened to it. You haven't, paid attention to the relationship with yourself in 10, 15, 20, 30 years. So that is a huge piece of what we end up doing is like, what is it that you want? And, in the beginning, it might just be like, I just want to stop feeling crazy. I just want to stop binge eating. I just want to stop obsessing over what other people think. I want to walk into a room and not wonder what everyone must be saying about me. And slowly we start to untangle that and untease that. And they start feeling really super solid on themselves. And it's like, oh, this over here is the shit I want to be doing. Like I was doing all of that because I thought I should. I thought it was right. I thought I was supposed to. I don't want that. One of my clients, we worked with food in the beginning, and she just left like a very big wig job at a corporation that most people would kill for. And she's like, I don't want to do it anymore. I don't want to be that person anymore. I don't want to wear that hat and that mask and pretend. And she's like, all of that was just like, it was, if I wasn't obsessing about food, I was obsessing about exercise. If it wasn't about exercise, it was about work. And so she's like, I just want to be free and just be myself for a while. And so that's a lot of the work that we do.
Well, and what's interesting is that really a lot of that, although it shows up in different ways, and in this case, it's really, the struggle to decide, do I want to have kids or stay child free, is helping women, predominantly women, connect with what do they actually want. And it surpasses, it goes far beyond, do I want to have kids or not? Of course, that, this is the ultimate question. But what I've seen, and I hear this with your work as well, is we overall are so disconnected from our bodies. We're so disconnected from our own gut knowing or intuition or what have you. We're so accustomed to doing what other people want and people pleasing and what have you, that we really don't know. And so I'm interested to hear, as an exercise, regardless of like how this is manifesting in people's own lives, is there a small way that you would suggest someone like myself? I'm always trying to connect better with what I want, but maybe somebody listening who feels really, not aligned with their own wants and needs in even small little ways. Is there something they can do to start cultivating that more?
I mean, I honestly think the truth is that you're just pretending you don't. You're just pretending you don't. You're like, because what you want isn't what looks good on paper, possibly. Like what you want isn't the thing that your friends have known you to do forever. And so it's like, it's this little tiny flicker inside of you that's like, I kind of want to go do that thing over there. It's like, no, that's silly. Come back here. You have to do this job. You have to do this role. And so I would say, you can start as simple as a color of lipstick. Like, I would never wear that hot pink, but like, I freaking love it. And it's like,
buy the damn lipstick.
I'm going to get the lipstick. I'm going to get it and I'm going to wear it for a day. And this is how I also kind of started to develop that sense of self-confidence and self-trust too, is that we think when we start to do these things that the world is going to combust. People are going to shun us from groups. They're going to talk about us. They're going to point, and nobody cares. Wear hot pink, wear purple, wear black, wear blue lipstick, doesn't matter. No one honestly cares. Will they notice? Probably. Will they say something? Possibly. But do they care? No, they really don't. And so when you start to just doing these little tiny things, it may be if you're someone that you go out to eat and you're always the salad eater and you're like, oh, I really want the lasagna. Like, get the lasagna. Just go wild. Get some gelato after too and like live it up. Just be crazy. But really, it's like those simple little things where we do these in these other areas of our lives and we're like, holy shit, that was so freeing. That was so liberating and nothing bad happened. I followed through on this pull, on this little thread, on this little tug. I went after it and nothing bad happened. Now I wonder what else I can do. And that is how confidence is built. It's not thinking about it. It's not studying it. It's not reading it. It is doing it. It is putting it into action. It is getting the lipstick, ordering the lasagna, putting your name in the hat for a promotion, having the difficult conversation. It is all of those things that start to help you develop a rock solid sense of self-confidence. Because it's not that I'm going to do everything perfectly. It's that when I don't do things perfectly, I'm not going to die. I'm going to be just fine.
Yeah, totally agree. Such good advice. And again, it feels like a bit of a leap to think, okay, how is that going to help me figure out if I want to have kids or not? But I think if we can sort of exercise this muscle and start honoring the things that we want, even in really small, seemingly insignificant ways, I do think it helps connect us better with ourselves. And also, as Renae says, like, as you say, the world's not going to collapse. Everything will keep moving. What would you say? I mean, so a lot of this behavior, especially when it concerns like a big decision like having kids or not, people really worry about how their decision is going to impact other people, specifically if they decide not to have kids, if they decide to stay child free. And namely, I hear from a lot of people, they're worried about their parents not becoming grandparents, specifically if they're the only child in a family who may, if they're an only child or they're the only one who's potentially going to have kids. What would you say to someone who feels really consumed with like, oh God, what's going to happen if I don't carry the torch, so to speak, and actually have a child or children?
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. I felt this a little bit. I was like, well, once my brother had a kid, I was like, oh, phew, burden's off my back. Like my dad's got that. But I also thought that where I was like, I want my dad to be able to experience that. But also if you're like, I really don't want to have kids, I don't think, but like, I feel bad because I want my mom or my dad to be grandparents. Like, yo, that's like, come on. That's like, no, just no. It's not your job to fulfill this role for your parents. I'm also a very big advocate that I think our lives are for ourselves. I think that we should live our lives for ourselves. And that will always mean disappointing someone. Is it going to be you or is it going to be them? And disappointing yourself by having a kid is a very big commitment to possibly maybe bring joy to your parents. But then it's like, you're going to have kids for your parents and you're going to be like, okay, I need childcare. They're like, sorry, we're going out of town this weekend. You're like, I had this freaking kid for you. Why aren't you coming over and babysitting? I thought you were going to help more. Are you going to contribute financially? Are you going to do this, that, and the other? No, they want it for the fun. They want it for the weekends, the quick little trips. And so like really make sure that it feels good to you and not to please someone else, because that never ends well. When you're trying to change your decision or you're trying to do something because you're like, this is going to make them happy, it will almost always backfire. And just like one other thing on the topic of children, because I know a lot of women just like tear themselves apart about this decision. And like one thing is just like, don't think about it for a while. Like just chill out about it, go just do life. And the other thing is that like there really isn't a right decision. And the worst thing that I can imagine for anyone is deciding not to have kids. And then for the next 20 years, like, I wish I would have done that. Why didn't I do that? What am I missing out on? I think no matter what we decide, having a kid, for sure, I will think, I wonder what my life would have been like if I wouldn't have had this kid. I wonder how much money I would have had. I wonder where I'd be living. I wonder what I'd be doing instead. I will for sure have those thoughts. It is impossible to not take into consideration the other side. Like what would have happened if I would have stayed with that partner, stayed in that job, not made that move, not had this kid, right? And so it's like, you're going to entertain other options. Don't let it eat you up. It's like, you're going to have a kid or you're not, whatever your decision is, just trust that that's the right decision, because this beating like, is my life less than? No, I 1000% believe you can have a incredible life with or without a kid. Fulfilling, amazing, awesome, filled with purpose, filled with passion, filled with fun, filled with meaning, with or without a kid.
Yeah. I totally agree. And I think for me, that was one of the most freeing things, is to get to a point where I truly had that belief. I was like, you know what? I can have a happy, fulfilled life either way. Oh gosh, so many good things you've shared, and I could talk to you for the next couple of hours. We won't do that. It's the longest podcast episode ever. But one thing I do want to ask you about, like you talked about how much the last 9 months of motherhood have really, I guess, consumed you in many ways, just by necessity of like, you have this little baby to care for. But I also, I see that there are so many important parts of yourself in your life that you seem to have kept up really well. Like I know you do, I think, running or marathons, triathlons. You look like you're out living your life. You're not, as you mentioned, having just this identity of mom. If anything, that's something that's kind of like maybe still foreign to you. So this is something I hear from so many women. They're like, I'm really afraid I'm going to lose my identity if I have a child. What would you say you have personally done, or somebody might do to counter that? Or is it just like, well, you're going to have to give it up for a while and it's really just all about this child?
Yes to all of that. I mean, it would be like going through law school. Like you just give, everything costs something. Everything costs something, you know? And so for me, I know that running and staying active and connecting with people, like I said, once a week is vital for my mental health, for my happiness. And I'm very fortunate that and I'm not fortunate, this is the way that it should be, but like my partner is completely understanding. He's like, yeah, you need to do that. Go run, go do the thing. Yes, do it 100%. So that's hugely important to have in a partner, is someone that is going to meet you in the middle. And there are certain parts that you have to give up. That just, you can't always have it all, right? So it's like, yeah, I don't get to do, there are a couple, like one run a week I don't get to go to anymore because I just don't. And it's a bummer, but like, that's the way it is. You know, people always talk about like, I don't want a kid because I just want things to be easy. And I'm like, do you really? Like, do you? Because if you really wanted things to be easy, I think that the easiest thing to do is to not have a pet, not have a kid, not have a partner, and work in a very quote unquote secure job and live in a house by yourself. Never get let down, never have hurt feelings, never have difficult conversations, never experience life, in my opinion. So like, is it really about like, I just want an easy life? Because I don't. I want it all. I want extreme highs, extreme lows, all of it in between. And I got off a little bit on that, but you will lose a little bit of yourself because you're literally taking care of another human being, and it's a ton of time. And you can also this is where women, you got to do this. You got to ask for what you want. Because your husband's never going to be like, honey, why don't you just go for the run? Or why don't you get together with your girlfriends? No, he's going to be like, I'm going to watch TV and take a nap. You take the baby. You have got to advocate for yourself of what you need. I need an hour once a week to go do this. I need to spend this time with my friends for my sanity. And so that is something that I did with him, was like, I have to keep doing this. So I think really learning to advocate for yourself and know what those things are that make you feel really good.
Yeah, which comes back to what we were talking about, like knowing what you want, knowing what you need. And that's why I think that we have to do this work for ourselves, right? You mentioned like some of the work you've done to be the person you are today, just to be able to live and be here. That wasn't because you may have a child someday, but for you to actually just be good with yourself and to be happy. And I think getting clear on all those things, and like you say, communicating that with your partner and establishing that with yourself, knowing it's never going to be perfect because life isn't, and there are compromises. There are things we give up in any aspect of our lives, but also having some clarity around that sounds like it's been not just important, but critical for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
All right. Before we wrap things up, I have a few sort of rapid fire questions, if you will. So I'm hoping you can, first of all, finish this sentence starter. Being a mom is?
I think that's my answer. I think that's it's a lot of things all at once. It's a lot of things all at once.
I thought the sound you made was perfectly fitting. So. I was like, yeah, it sounds about right. Okay, being a mom is not?
For the faint of heart.
I say the same thing about business ownership. So true. All right. I'm curious, what do you think one thing would be that would make this decision a little bit easier for women who are on the fence? Either for themselves personally or like societally speaking, what might make it a little bit less difficult for them to decide?
You know, I think kind of going back to what we touched on is just like, if I could be really happy either way. You know, I got to the point where I didn't have a kid because I was like, I need someone to take care of me when I'm older. Like, again, I don't think that far ahead. I also think that's a terrible way to decide, but like, whatever, you do you. But it's like, okay, if I know I can be happy with this kid and I know I could be happy without this kid, what do I want to do? And just sit with it for a minute. Get off the hamster wheel of I have to decide. And that's easier said than done, because as women, you know, we do reach a point where it's like, it's unfair that men can have children until they're 90 and we're like the ones that have to do all the work and carry the baby, and we're like taking time bombs, you know, at a certain point. It's like, I can't have a kid anymore. But like, try to take that pressure off of yourself of like, this is the biggest decision of my life. It's like, I mean, I guess, like, I don't know, just chill out for a minute and like, okay, does this sound fun? Does this sound like that was the question I asked. Does this sound like an adventure I want to go on? And I was like, hell yeah, I do. I do. And that was it.
I think it's a fantastic question to ask. I mean, no, but really, I mean, if you know you want, and probably for you, those are feelings you want to cultivate. You want to have fun. You want to have adventure. So is it going to be fun and adventure? Heck yeah. Awesome. What is one thing that you would like women without kids to know?
Women without kids. One thing that kind of comes to my mind is just, I feel like there's often a very strong divide between women with kids and women without kids. And I can get it, but I also don't really get it. You know, I didn't hate people that had kids when I didn't have a kid, and I don't hate people without kids now that I have a kid. So I guess I just wish that there was a little bit more like compassion between the two sides. It's like a lot of people, I feel like, almost try to drive in a divider there of like, you didn't have kids, so you had kids, so like, I don't want to go to your kid party. I don't want to go to this. And it's like, I mean, okay, like kids are cool and they're fucking annoying sometimes. And like, all of that can be okay. And the other thing is just because like, I know that there are some women out there that can't have kids or are struggling to have kids and don't know if they're going to be able to have kids. And I just really want to reiterate, like, your life will still have tons of meaning and fun without a child. Like, it really will.
Amen. All right. My final question is, if you could give one piece of advice to someone who's currently on the fence about whether or not to have kids, what would that be?
I think it would be more of a conversation. Honestly, I think we'd because it's not like, do you want chicken or beef? You know, it's like, oh, chicken. I mean, it can be that vegan. Simple, but yeah, okay. But, you know, I think it would just be like, I don't know, don't pressure yourself so much. Like, just be chill about it. Like, you're going to, I do believe that you always know when you know when it's time to leave the career, you know when it's time to leave the relationship, you know if you want to have a kid. Like, it literally happened for me overnight where I was like, I want to have a kid. Didn't see it coming. And so I could have spent all that time. Am I gonna? Am I not? Am I gonna? Am I not? And I think that that's what we tend to do is like, maybe if I just worry about it a little bit more, that's going to get me closer to the answer. And it doesn't. It just makes you feel terrible and it's exhausting and it's all consuming versus just like, yeah, I'm going to let that come in. I'm going to think about it and then I'm going to let it go back out. But like obsessing over it isn't going to help you get there faster.
Yeah. I agree. Nothing good comes from a frenzied place.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. Perhaps we'll have to check in the future and see how motherhood's going another year or two down the road.
Absolutely.
I know I will be paying close attention online. I'm curious, first of all, where can people find you if they want to check out, you in your gold bodysuit or check out the work that you do? And then I think you also have something you wanted to share with anybody listening who wants to check that out.
So you can find me on my website at Renae Saager. I'm on Instagram at Renae Saager. I also have a podcast at The Ballsy Broadcast, and I have a couple freebies right now too that are your life and energy audit that if you're feeling just like, what do I do? Why am I stuck? Why do I feel this way? That's a great little tool to kind of just do a little self-reflecting. And if you're struggling with food and body stuff, I have a Stop Binge Eating guide for people to snag as well.
Amazing. Thank you so much for joining me today. Any last words of wisdom you want to share?
No, I think I dropped it all. I think I dropped
used it all. Okay.
Yeah, it's gone.
Okay, now that we've wrapped up today's conversation, this is the part of the episode where I tell you that you need to subscribe, rate, and review the podcast. And you really need to do that. And I'm going to tell you why. And that is because one of the big ways that people find and discover new podcasts like this one is through reviews. So if you yourself can go say what you loved about this podcast, why people who are on the fence should tune into the Kids Are Childfree podcast, that's going to help other people who are also wondering, should I have kids or stay childfree, to discover us. Thank you in advance for doing so. I will be featuring some of the reviews in upcoming episodes, so maybe I'll share yours. You never know. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll see you back here soon for our next episode.